Passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here. And before we get to the actual interview today, I wanted to tell you about something I've been working on for the last probably 2+ years. As many of you know, I'm a franchise attorney, and I spend a lot of time helping people buy great franchise systems, or what I hope will become a great franchise system. And to that end, I spent a lot of time reviewing the legal documents, what's called the franchise disclosure documents, that every franchisor is required to provide to prospective franchisees. Well, over the years, I've realized a lot of really important elements of each and every franchise disclosure document, what's included, what sometimes is not included, questions to then take back to your franchisor, red flags, and perhaps most importantly, a breakdown of what these complicated legal documents actually say in an understandable format. Now, what I've done with that is I've created a guide and audio series. It's called A Lawyer's Guide to Buying a Great Franchise. And it comes with about a 50-page nice PDF that breaks down every aspect of the franchise disclosure document, and also comes with audio case studies that further breaks down some of the more important elements of the FDD. Now, of course, if you want to check that out, and I would love for you to do so, just head over to indyfranchiselaw.com/guide. That's indyfranchiselaw.com/guide. And of course, I'd be remiss without saying that this is not a substitute, nor is it legal services. It is an educational guide, but I really think it's going to help you along your journey in finding the franchise that's right for you. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Today I'm thrilled to have Paul Maskill on the show. Paul has a varied background. He started off in corporate America, then became a franchisee owner-operator, then sold his franchises, and now works for the franchisor. So I think it goes without saying he's going to add a lot of value to the conversation here today, and I want Paul to actually tell his own story. So hello, Paul, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. As we talked a little bit offline, I'm really interested in your background and how you made the transition into corporate America, out of corporate America, and in some senses back into corporate America. So we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So I started out with the dream of climbing the corporate ladder. That's what everybody told me to do, probably since anybody was old enough to say, what are you going to be when you grow up? And they say, go to school, get a good job, and then do that for 40 years and retire. So that's what I did, except I didn't do it for 40 years and retire. So I had relocated to Chicago, worked in the finance world for about 3 years, and knew that was not for me. It wasn't rewarding. Didn't really enjoy building other people's businesses, and there just was not a ton of incentive on the table, short-term and long-term. So decided to look for other opportunities, actually relocated down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I came across, I was looking through the Entrepreneur magazine, top 10 low-cost franchises you can run from home, something along those lines, and happened to come across TGA, which stands for Teach, Grow, and Achieve. And TGA runs golf and tennis programs for kids, using them as a vehicle to teach them rules and etiquette, character development, physical fitness, math, science, STEM, all that good stuff. So it's really an enrichment program on campus right after school. And then the goal is to transition those kids to golf courses and tennis facilities in the area. So for me, it was a perfect fit, combining my business background and experience as well as my passion for sports. So I decided to invest in my first TGA franchise. So I invested in a golf franchise in 2011, quit my job.
Was that in North Carolina? That was in North Carolina.
So that was in North Carolina. So I left Chicago and didn't have my next plan really lined up. So I actually went to South America for 2 months, backpacked around South America. And when I got back from there, I knew that I wasn't going to go back to the corporate world. So that's when I relocated to North Carolina. My girlfriend at the time, now wife, was living there. So I had decided to make the move, warmer weather, didn't have to deal with the winters. So that was always a good positive. And that's when I started TGA here in North Carolina. So over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, grew it to 4 franchises. And then, like you said, sold it for a pretty good return, about 6 times my initial investment. And during that time, the last couple of years, I was actually doing some consulting work for the franchisor to help other business owners kind of get their business where they want to go, putting the right people, processes, and systems in place. And then when I sold it, there just happened to be an opportunity to start to work with them full time. So that's what I'm doing now, working as the business development director, working with all prospective franchise owners as well as current franchise owners to help them, look at their business, look at the territory, what is the viability of it, put together a financial model, especially for the prospective franchise owners, make sure they're comfortable with it. And then for the current franchise owners, help them get to where they want to go by putting those people, processes, and systems in place.
Wow, that is a lot of information just wrapped into one, and we are going to break that down. That's great. That was a great synopsis of everything. Let's take it back, though, to the point where you get back from South America, you move to North Carolina, you are sitting there and I'm sure questioning and saying, what am I going to do? You're reading through Entrepreneur Magazine, and I'm sure in addition to TGA, you probably found other possibilities, other possible franchises that you were interested in. Talk to us a little bit about that process that you went through to sort of decide which franchise was going to be right for you.
Yeah, I was, like you said, I was really looking at all type of business opportunities. I knew that I didn't want to invest in a brick and mortar and do a build out and have a bunch of overhead and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that I wasn't going to go that route. So I wanted to start my own business. I wanted it to be based from home. And then from there, I was looking at any franchise opportunities, brainstorming what I could do on my own. And, so there's a ton of, work from home franchise opportunities. And TGA really just fit the model. One, because I really wanted to do something rewarding after working in the finance industry from 2007 to 2010, which, as you probably know, is not the best time to be in the financial world. So I knew I just wanted to do something fun, rewarding, and exciting, as well as, have that opportunity where the harder I work, the more successful I could be. And to have the opportunity to build a business around getting more kids to play sports was a perfect fit for me. So that's kind of how I landed. And obviously there was a big due diligence process to make sure everything else made sense, but that was really, one of the big factors in making that decision.
So what was the due diligence process that you went through? I know a lot of people listening will be interested in that because they are folks themselves that are considering making a leap or possibly have recently made a leap. And I'm sure they're wondering sort of what process you went through because you did have a good experience all in all. And of course they want to have one as well. So what are some of the things that you did to check out the franchise?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend any listener out there that is looking into investing in a franchise to definitely take your time. You're going to be building a long-term business, so there's no need to jump into it right away. So really the first thing that I did was just talk to the people at headquarters, so really the person that's in my position now back in 2010, 2011, and just kind of pick their brain, kind of, get a good idea of who they are, what they believe in, what kind of support system they have in place. And then once you sign that confidentiality agreement, then you can really start digging into what the business is all about. So I reached out to a whole bunch of franchise owners to pick their brain, get their experience, what they like about the business, what they don't like, what are the strengths, weaknesses, struggles, challenges with the business model. So I really would recommend anybody to take a lot of time to, reach out to other franchise owners after you sign a confidentiality agreement. If they don't let you do that, I would definitely raise a red flag because why wouldn't they let you talk to people that are also running the same type of business? So that was a big part of it, just to kind of get to know who the owners are and what what they're doing, where they came from. The other big part was going through a financial pro forma and really taking a look at the business on a 360-degree angle. So the financials are obviously a big part of it. In TGA's case, if I bring in this many kids at this many schools and I and it costs this much. This is my revenue, and then it's going to factor out all the expenses as well. So you can really get a good idea of what the earning potential is depending on how hard you want to work. And then all of the other things that go into a business. What's the competition? Where do I hire coach? In TGA's case, coaches. Where do I hire employees? What can I charge in my area? What are other people charging? All those things that go into running a business. What's the day-to-day like? What kind of systems and technology do they have in place? All those things you really want to take your time, do some really good due diligence. I'm sure there's a ton of resources online as well of what you need to do doing that due diligence process. So those were the two main, and then all the other things would kind of be some local market research. I would, call out to schools and just say, hey, what do you think about this opportunity? If I brought it here, is it something you might be interested in? To make sure that, there is a demand for it. Coming from a sports background, I had a good idea that there'd be a demand for it, but I really wanted to make sure that, it was the right decision.
So, Paul, it sounds like you've really done or really did a good job of really checking out the franchise in total. Oftentimes, I know in my world, I speak with people who may have started the process, may have done a few things, but they haven't done a full, complete review of the franchise system. I particularly thought it was interesting where you said you actually contacted schools and just kind of felt them out in terms of what their interests would be. I think that's a really, really smart thing to do, specifically with regard to the franchise you were considering.
Yeah, and they totally from the TGA side, they definitely want you to do that as well. The only thing obviously you can't say is that I am a TGA owner at that time. You just say I'm looking to bring TGA to the area, because the franchisor doesn't want to invest in you in the same sense, and then it doesn't work out, and then it's just going to get messy. If you didn't do that due diligence and then you find out none of the schools are open to outside vendors, all of a sudden, then it's going to get messy from both sides, the franchisor and the franchisee. So they definitely want to make sure you do the due diligence as well. So it did work out well.
Now, did you do a full break-even analysis? I know you said you obviously reviewed the financials. You have a financial background, so that makes good sense. But talk to us a little bit about if you did a full break-even analysis. In other words, when you believed, all factors being considered, when your earliest possible point of breaking even on the investment.
Yeah, I definitely did. Like you said, I'm a finance guy. Love working in Excel and spreadsheets. I did that. I've been doing that forever pretty much. So definitely did a break-even analysis. When, what is my return on my investment going to be? When am I going to get all that back? And, with TGA, it actually happened pretty quickly because, like I said, there's not a ton of startup costs since you are able to do it from your home. So it worked out for me from a finance standpoint really well.
Now, when you went from one franchise to at a certain point you had 4 different locations. Did you negotiate that ahead of time as part of your first purchase? I mean, did you negotiate a right of first refusal on additional stores, or did you just add them as you went?
Yeah, so actually all TGA franchise owners, it's in their actual franchise agreement that everybody does get a right of first refusal in 2 different ways. So if you own a golf franchise in a specific geographic area, in my case, it was West Wake County. So I live in Wake County, North Carolina. So I had the golf franchise in West Wake County. I had 2 right of first refusals, basically. One to the tennis franchise in my area. So if anybody wanted to bring tennis to the West Wake County area, I would have a 30-day right of first refusal. And then also I had a geographic right of first refusal to any contiguous area that's touching my current territory for whatever franchise I own. So in this case, I had a right of first refusal to East Wake County Golf. If anybody wanted to bring a golf franchise into East Wake County, I would have a 30-day right of first refusal. So it worked out well in that sense as well. So I could control my growth. If somebody came in, then I could take action on that right of first refusal. And now they actually offer, if you want to do golf and tennis starting at the same time, they actually offer a 25% discount on both franchise investment fees if you do them at the same time. So yeah, I definitely planned for future growth by leveraging those rights of first refusal.
So you started to talk a little bit about how TGA works. I think it's an interesting franchise. It's not one that I think the average person would probably know of. So can you take a few minutes and talk about how that whole system worked for you and how you came in as a franchisee and became a part of it?
Yeah. So like I said, I have a business background and a sports background. So for me, it worked out perfectly. But TGA stands for Teach, Grow, and Achieve. And at TGA, we believe sports change lives. So we use golf and tennis as a vehicle to teach kids, a full-on enrichment program. So along with the sport, they're going to learn all the different aspects of those two sports. They're lifelong sports, character development, rules and etiquette, academic lessons, physical fitness, all those good things. And the way we deliver that product is by actually bringing it to schools right on campus, either before school or after school. So we provide all the equipment, we provide all the coaches, we provide everything. All we need is a place to play. We don't need tennis courts because we have portable equipment. We don't need a golf course because we have all this portable equipment as well. So golf and tennis are the two least played youth sports, but the two most played adult sports. And really because it's not on the menu of activities for kids until they get a little bit older, and by then they've probably already picked their sports. So we go into mainly elementary schools. 70% of our kids have never played golf or tennis before they come to us, and we get them excited about it, make it fun through a 5-level enrichment program with the goal of teaching them and instilling them all the tools and values they need to then go to the golf course or go to the tennis courts and play on a regular basis with their family and friends. And then we transition them to there by running golf camps, summer camps, tennis camps, parent-child events, play days, festivals, leagues, anything and everything that you can run. That's what we do. So the goal is to keep them in your program and system as long as possible to obviously increase the customer lifetime value and continue to have them be lifelong golfers or tennis players. So that's in 60 seconds. That's what the business model is. You get to the grassroots level.
Is there a cost to the schools, or is it just paid for by the parents or the kids in the program?
Yeah, so it's a parent-funded program. So it's just an elective. Kids can sign up for it once. You basically run a program once a week for 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and you do that 3 or 4 times a year. So the kids might sign up for after-school golf on Mondays for the next 6 Mondays from 3 to 4 o'clock, and it's parent-funded. We do have a 501c3 nonprofit that we can also leverage to provide financial aid and assistance to kids that are disabled or unable to pay for the program to ensure that everybody gets a chance to play with us. So that's kind of the crux of it. The schools actually usually make money off of us, so it's a win-win for everybody. The schools will usually either charge you to use their facilities or take a percentage, or the franchise owner actually might give back a percentage to help them with their fundraising efforts. And then obviously the parents win. They don't have to drive their kids anywhere to play sports. They could just stay after school and they just get picked up an hour later. And then you're creating jobs, business opportunity, and getting more kids active after school instead of playing video games.
That's fascinating. That's really, really it's really, really interesting. I know this was a really good experience for you, and I want to talk about your exit from the franchise system. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you experienced through franchise ownership or business ownership. I know, as a first-time business owner, you had to experience some sort of challenges. What are some of the things that, you experienced, and what do you wish maybe you had known ahead of time that you learned through the course of doing?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much owning a business, owning franchises, meeting other people. I think the biggest thing, especially the first time when you leave your job or whatever and you become your own boss, you really got to be organized. You really got to be really good at time management, because you've went from a reactive position where your boss tells you to do something and you do it, to a proactive position where there's nobody telling you to do something, but you need to start planning ahead. And if you don't know what to plan for, you're going to be in trouble. So really just learning from all these little mistakes that you make. And at first, probably the biggest challenge was taking it personally or getting frustrated when you make a mistake, to kind of switching your mindset to making a mistake actually get your business where you want it to go, because you're going to learn from it. You're going to improve a process or improve a system or improve a customer experience or an employee experience, something along those lines. And then the biggest moving part in our business or any service-based business is going to be your staff. So how do you keep your employees engaged? In TGA's case, it's all part-time employees. So how do you keep them engaged? How do you get them to work together? You're going to have people from all different backgrounds, and you're the one, that's leading the ship. So that's probably the two biggest takeaways when I first started. And then, as I started to scale it, the biggest takeaway is don't be afraid to delegate. If you want to get your business to the next level, you really have to start delegating. So putting those systems and people and processes in place so that your business can thrive without you having to be there on a day-to-day basis is going to be, huge if you want to really scale your business.
Now, did you start off with part-time employees, or did you start off just yourself?
So the TGA model is, the owner does everything to start as far as admin work, growing the business, anything and everything in the office, but you're going to need coaches to start coaching your programs pretty much right away. So I started out, I believe I had 3 or 4 coaches working with me part-time after school. I was still working every day after school, and they were basically my assistant coaches. So I was the head coach, kind of responsible for the actual class. And then I had these assistants working with me with the plan to promote them to be head coaches eventually so that we could continue to grow how many schools we're running, how many camps we're running, and that kind of stuff. So I started out with 3 or 4 employees that first fall of 2011. And then when we sold the business fall of 2015, we had about 44 employees. So we were able to grow it and continue and maintain our quality of programs as well.
So how were you able to manage that? I mean, it's hard enough to manage. It's hard to manage full-time employees. It's really challenging, as you said, to manage part-time employees because you only get part of their attention. And so how were you able to do that?
It's one of those things where it's like you can't really put a name or a title or a definition on it. It's really just on an individual basis, knowing to sum it up as quickly as you can, know what makes each person tick and then just play off of that. So you might have, in our case, we had a lot of college kids. We're here by NC State, so we had a lot of college kids. And then we had a lot of, because we needed coaches from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. So it's kind of a weird time. Obviously, we had to pay them accordingly to get that time from them, but it's kind of a weird time. So we had a lot of college kids, we had some high school kids, and then we had a lot of retirees or stay-at-home moms or empty nesters. And so really we had people from age 16 all the way up to 70 and everybody in between. So to make it work as easy as possible is to really get to know everybody on an individual basis and what makes them tick. So what makes an 19-year-old freshman tick is going to be totally different than a 65-year-old retiree that wants to play golf every day. So really getting to know your employees and then providing them the support they need so that all they have to do is one thing and do it well. Provide them all the tools they need so that when they get there, all they have to do is focus on coaching. They don't have to worry about anything else because you've already taken care of it for them. So that's what I found the most success in, is really getting to know them, getting out there with them, leading by example, and then figuring out where each person comes from, where they want to go, and how does TGA play into that, path of where they want to go.
Now, so you've got 44 employees, you got 44 part-time employees, you got 4 different locations, things are seemingly going well, and they are going well. What led you to decide to sell?
So I was really just actually a friend of mine who's a local small business broker. There was a couple of factors, but it wasn't. I got to the point where like, oh my gosh, I got to sell this business and move on to something else. I loved every day of doing it. Obviously, I still love it because I'm still working in the business on the franchisor side now. But I had been doing it for almost 5 years and was really just wanted to see what else was out there. Didn't want to get stuck. I didn't want it to turn into a job. And I never wanted to get burned out, and I never wanted, especially working with kids, you always want them to have a good experience. So I really just wanted to see what else was out there, and reached out to the small business broker, and they kind of valued the business. And I said, well, if we can get that top part of the value, I would definitely be interested in entertaining, what's out there. And at the same time, somebody that was retiring early from the corporate world who was looking to run their own business that was already up and running, fully functional, and she just happened to like golf, came to the broker saying, hey, do you have any businesses along these lines? So it was really, timing was everything. And my personality is one that once I kind of figure something out, I want to move on to the next thing. So even in the corporate world, I was kind of bouncing around probably every 6 to 9 months. Once I figured out a job, I wanted another challenge. So at this point, I felt, in my opinion, I kind of figured this out and got it to, further than I ever thought I would get it to. So then I was ready for the next challenge.
And so talk to us a little bit about that next challenge, because this is a unique story, and I think it's an interesting one where, it's not often you hear of somebody going from franchisee to then working for the franchisor. But I think it's a very positive story, and I think it's a worthwhile story to hear in franchising. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so it really happened. I think I go back to the same timing as everything. So when I sold the businesses, I wasn't even really thinking of going to work with them full time or taking, a leadership role within the franchisor. My basic plan was I was going to continue to do the consulting with them, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week, that I was just working with current business owners, current franchise owners that, needed a little bit of help, a little bit of framework, a little bit of structure. and I was going to start a couple other businesses. So I actually did. So I started a e-commerce store selling handmade wood products, and then I started a podcast about franchising and was going to kind of do that. And I actually did all three for a while. So I was doing the TGA consulting, I was running the e-commerce store, and then I was running a podcast. And
what was your podcast?
So my podcast was called Automate Your Franchise. So it was really just talking about my experience and then interviewing business owners on how they get their business automated. So I did that from basically October of 2015 until the end of June 2016. And then that's when a couple things happened. The e-commerce store started to take off and take a little bit more of my time. TGA offered me the full-time position as well as with a vested interest in the long-term success of the business. And then we also had our first baby at the end of June. So it was like those three things were taking up too much of my time. So I had to put the podcast on hiatus for now. So the way it really came to be was TGA was looking to grow. They needed somebody like myself to fill that role, to really start growing, from the prospective franchise standpoint as well as the current franchise standpoint. And they felt, and I felt, that my experience of what I've done, running a franchise would be very valuable in helping prospective franchise owners as well as current franchise owners on a bigger level than what I was just as a consultant.
So you work with current franchisees. How many franchisees are a part of that system now, the TGA system?
So we just crossed over 100. So there's just over 100 franchises, mainly in the U.S. for now, but we're definitely starting to expand globally. I think we have 102. So 2 of those are in Canada, 1 of them is in Spain, and then the rest are in the U.S. So I work probably with about half of those, kind of working on business development, depending on what they need, whether it's putting systems in place or they need help with marketing or they need help with HR stuff or they just need help getting their finances in order. Whatever it is, I kind of work with them on a one-on-one basis as well as doing some group stuff, webinars and conference calls and that kind of thing.
So is there a lot of travel involved then? Are you traveling around to various locations?
Yeah, so I'll travel probably once or twice a month, mainly for any new franchise owners that come on board. So if a new franchise comes on board, I'll be the one to go out to their location and basically do 2 full days of training, sales training, business training, planning, all that kind of stuff. So I just got back actually from Nashville. We just opened up a golf and tennis franchise in Nashville. So I was there. And then I will travel once in a while to TGA's headquarters, which is actually in LA. So I'll go out there every couple months. And then I'll also go to any current franchise owners that need additional training as well.
Well, that's fantastic, Paul. I really appreciate you coming on, and it's really nice to hear a very positive experience. I know there's a lot of them out there, but you tend to only hear about the negative ones, and you definitely had a positive experience with your franchise. What's a good way for somebody to get a hold of you if they just want to ask you some questions or if they're interested in the TGA model?
Yeah, so a couple ways. If they want to reach out to me directly, they can always just email me, pmaskill@playtga.com. I'm sure you'll link that up in their show notes. If you want, you can also go to franchisetga.com/euphoria, and that'll be a welcome page just for the Euphoria listeners. There'll actually be a way to schedule a call if you just want to chat about TGA or just franchising in general. And then there's some other good resources there to learn a little bit more about franchising as well as TGA. And if you're on Twitter, you can always reach out to me on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is just Paul Maskill.
Well, thanks, Paul. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I am quite sure that people will take a lot from this interview and your experiences. So thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Josh.
If any of the information you heard today you found meaningful, helpful, head on over to indyfranchiselaw.com. That's INDY, franchiselaw.com. I've got a couple really cool white papers. One is what to know before you franchise your business. So if you're out there thinking about franchising your business and found today's episode helpful, go ahead to indyfranchiselaw.com and check out that free resource. Additionally, if you're thinking about buying a franchise, I've got a great resource on what to know before you buy a franchise. So head on over to indyfranchiselaw.com, INDY, franchiselaw.com.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.